I know just in hearing a little bit about what the culture's like at Deepgram. I mean, I'm curious to get your perspective on whether it's like your like academic background that influenced this, but you seem to be as advanced as your technology is, and you guys are always like pushing the envelope, um, which probably in itself is part of that background in terms of continuous like experimentation and things like that. But I have an appreciation for the fact that you're able to stay like human centric and continue to appreciate the value of human intelligence, both individual and collective, human intelligence and cognitive diversity as you sort of attack some of these very technical, problems. So that you could just sort of unpack that a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's pretty funny to think like we're a language company, Deepgram, and let's just look at some of the language. What is a company? How do we use the word company? Yes, there's the startup company, public company, that kind of company. But also, it's like, hey, you're in good company. You're in good. What is company really? A company is a group of people, you know, and like you can't like I know technology companies folks like to think it's all about the tech. It really isn't. It's about the people marshaling the tech, and so and there's the marshaling of the tech today and a year from now and 5 years from now and a decade from now. And so really what you're doing is you're setting up this like organism and you're just like releasing it into the world, as this like automaton that's going out and doing its thing. Um and so now how do you want that to behave? Do you want that organism to be like a fully top down, everything is done this way, hub and spoke way to run the company and all the decisions run through me or not, or that type of thing? And there are companies that work that way. But they have their pros and their cons, right? And Deepgram does not work that way. We're much more uh, do the right thing at the right time. You don't have like high transparency. You don't have to consult me about this or that or whatever. But we do have, an overarching mission and North Star, and that is to increase the productivity of the world. And the mission is to do it through audio now, serving B2B, using real time AI, and supplying the underlying engineering and cutting edge models to developers in order to build it, right? But now there's a lot of freedom in that saying, hey, you're given all this information. Meeting in Deepgram that's not a one-on-one. Every meeting that's not a one-on-one is recorded in Deepgram, so anybody can watch anything and see like what is this team doing, what is that team doing, how are the decisions being made over here or there or whatever. Right? So you're never like information limited. And there are pros and cons to this, and you have to be really selective in who you hire into the company. Um, but one of the things that you look for, like one of the best signs, the top sign for sure, is curiosity. For Deepgram and this kind of company, is curiosity. And one thing that doesn't come through very well on a resume, curiosity. What comes through really well in a conversation, curiosity. And so anyway, but you really have to think about that kind of thing because you want this self-propagating, like at least at Deepgram, you want this self-propagating like organism that goes out into the world and but just adheres to a few of these constraints, like increase the productivity of the world, do it through audio and etc. Um, and I think setting it up that way is a much more academic way of thinking about things. It's just like the best ideas win, and those ideas can come from anyone. And my door is always open. Anybody's door is always open. It's not just about me. So if you're seeing something, like pull that's going wrong or whatever, like pull the cord, stop the bus, right? And like let's talk about why that's happening, or how we can fix it, or like maybe you can't fix it and like we have to come back to that later or whatever it is, but like everybody then will be informed about it. And there's something about that that makes like Deepgram is around 100 people, And in this like 100, 200, 300 person range, like you can still be very agile as a company. And we aim to keep it that way for a long time. And one of the ways that we'll be doing it is through automation and AI in the company. But again, this turns into a company, people, marshaling the technical resources in order to go out and achieve the goal of the company. So yeah, I think the most succinct way I can articulate what it is Deepgram is an intelligence company. We're a learning company. We're a teaching company. We're that kind of thing. So internally, if you're moving through your career, if you're not learning, we're doing something extremely wrong. And what would keep you at the company for a long time, happy as a curious person, a curious, motivated person, is learning over time. Same thing with our customers, teaching them and them teaching us, etc. And then, of course, we sell like intelligence and learning products, so I think when you connect it all together that way, it just becomes like obvious. It's like, oh, this is the way to build an intelligence company. And so I don't think myself or the founding team at Deepgram really sat down and like architected it out, that this is the way that it should go. But we just came to this as like this is the only way it's going to work, long term. So yeah.
Yeah, no, that's great that you've got everybody sort of bought into that because I completely agree with the approach. And how do you harness all that intelligence? You can put whatever prefix on that intelligence you want, but um, there still is a place for very much for human intelligence and curiosity amongst all this technology. And I just think you're in an unbelievable place because everything seems to be moving towards voice and voice interaction.
Yeah,
Your
we
thoughts?
from our perspective, like this is one of the first principles things as a company, like like why we would even work on audio is we just saw like what do humans do all day if you're talking if I don't even want to I'm biasing it by saying the word talking but like if you're somehow communicating with one of your best friends or coworkers or whatever and they're in the same room and they're next to you and there's no other distraction going on and there's no other like constraint, what is the thing that most people do? Let's look at it across the ages. 200 years ago, 100 years ago, 50 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 2 years ago, now, 2 years from now, 10 years from now, 30 years, etc. Actually, this idea that like you're going to text the same person in the room to talk about X or Y, etc. as like the best option, for communicating with them is just like a short blip on like a human time scale. And it's the blip when voice AI wasn't working very well, basically, right? So like over the past like 30, 40 years, something like that. Before that, you had no texting ability to the human. So what would you do? You would go talk to them, right? Or write a letter. But even then you would much prefer to just talk to them, right? So now in the last like decade or two, a lot of folks got used to texting on the phone, writing things on the laptop, etc. And that became in a lot of ways like the preferred mode of communication. Sometimes folks will Slack a person that's sitting right next to them, etc. But this is partially because they're so used to it. It's a lot of times just because there's other constraints. Like there's other people in the room, you don't want to bother other people, so you'll just Slack the person next to you. That makes sense. But the natural form that we all communicate in is through spoken language.